Typhoon Hinnamnor remains a very strong typhoon 150 kilometers south of Okinawa. So, very dangerous Typhoon Hinnamnor is still meandering around to the southwest, 150 kilometers south of Okinawa, and starting to approach Miyakojima currently at 24.7 north, 127.7 degrees east. As of 10 p.m. Japan time, this August 31st, it still has winds of 145 miles per hour, that's 230 kilometers per hour, and a pressure of 928 millibars moving west-southwest at 15 miles per hour. Those winds are sustained with higher gusts probably into the Category 5 range. Here is the storm displayed on the map. You can see how close it is to those islands, and there is the wind field, so tropical storm conditions practically touching the southern tip of Okinawa at this time, and this wind field is expected to dramatically grow when this storm stalls. It is currently 167 kilometers from Naha, 199 from Kumejima, 240 from Miyakojima, 356 from Ishigaki, and 815 from Kagoshima, much further towards the north. It is also around about 625 kilometers east of the northern tip of Taiwan. So this storm will make its influence much more felt as its wind field increases in size quite a lot. The primary hazard though that we're looking at right now is still flash flooding. As this storm stalls, days of rainfall will lead to a high likelihood of major flooding and flash flooding across the southern Ryukyu Islands, and as the storm grows it will extend outwards towards the mountains of Taiwan and southern Kyushu by the next 5 days. Taiwan, they're expecting around about 300 millimeters of rain on the mountains. The islands in between, we'll get onto that shortly. So here is the forecast track and the wind field. You can see it gradually growing, and there it is when it stalls in the next couple of days, and then the wind field balloons. All that green area is tropical storm force winds of 65 kilometers per hour sustained or higher, and look at it by the time we get through Japan and Korea, and by the start of next week approaching the coast of Russia, turning post-tropical. We are worried that it's going to be an extremely powerful storm by the time it reaches either Korea or Japan, or in between the two, and could still be a Category 3 by that point. Good agreement on the storm's current intensity though, 145 miles per hour, supported by satellite techniques, and both of the agencies, the prominent agencies, JMA of course, the officials, and the JTWC in this area, both at that same wind speed. Here's a look at some warnings in Japan right now. Those yellow areas all denoting gale advisories. There's no typhoon warnings right now, but there is an extreme storm surge warning for Okinawa at this time. So there is major concern about potential storm surge impacts over that island. This is what the models are suggesting for the storm, where it's going to turn towards the north eventually, and off it goes, passing through the Ryukyu Islands, and then still extremely powerful by the time it's up towards the northern part of the East China Sea, through South Korea and Japan, and then off towards Russia. Unfortunately, it's not loading for me right now, so I can't actually see it myself, but that is what I remember seeing earlier. So wind impacts are going to be quite substantial. Here is the water vapor imagery showing that this storm, you really get to see some deep yellows there in the imagery as the storm progresses northwards eventually after that stalling motion, showing just a huge amount of moisture in this storm when it gets going again. And that is why we are very concerned about extremely high rain rates and rain totals by the time we get the storm up towards its eventual destinations. And there it goes again, extremely powerful, and you can just see the influence of the storm, just how large it gets as well. So looking at the rain expectations, we are still expecting the storm to pass fairly in between Miyakojima and Okinawa with its highest rainfall amounts, but if it deviates east or west, then you could be looking at over 30 inches on some land areas. At the moment we're expecting 20 inches, which is 500 millimeters of rain for either Miyakojima or Okinawa or both, with 12 inches quite common across the rest of the islands and in northern Taiwan and in the southeastern part of Kyushu, and for various parts of South Korea as well. That's 300 millimeters, quite common. Sea surface temperatures currently are around 29, maybe pushing 30 degrees Celsius where the storm currently is, and they'll remain decent sea surface temperatures into the East China Sea. They've been boiling hot for quite a while, still around 28 to 29 degrees as the storm approaches Korea as well. If it does end up a little bit further west, then those sea surface temperatures might be a bit cooler, which will limit the strengthening. If the storm remains further east of the forecast, then you could be looking at maybe an even stronger scenario, or at least better conditions for it. Here's a look at the satellite imagery of the storm right now and its progression towards the southwest. A lot of jogging going on, as you can see there, in terms of its track, those oscillations. You usually get these in strong typhoons particularly, or at least it's much more noticeable. And this movement, as we know, is expected to continue. Miyakojima just about getting the edge of the main part of the storm now, and the other islands to the west there, the Ayama Islands, starting to receive the very outer bands, and the high cirrus approaching Taiwan at this point as well, which is visible on the far left of the image. The eye is still looking decent, it's got a good temperature inside it, that much is clear. Multiple eye walls, quite clear even on satellite. But still, this storm is very impressive, and it's going to be very interesting to see just how it pulls off this trend in the next few days as it stalls. Looking at some more imagery, this is of a longer time period on the water vapor, and it's been pretty good for the whole period there. Impressive blow-ups of convection, a lot of moisture contained inside it by those dark green hues. And looking at the larger view here as well of the infrared too, and again you'll note those cloud tops are really blowing up. You can even see Tropical Depression 13W to its south as well, which is blowing up convection but will ultimately get completely swallowed up by this typhoon. And a close-up view of that water vapor imagery on rapid scan. You can just about make out those small islands to the left hand side, and you can see just how close they're getting now to the storm's influence. And this shows the geocolor imagery as well, showing how this storm has been progressing from another perspective. Okinawa getting quite a bit of the outer part of the storm. I imagine it's not too heavy right now, although tropical storm force gusts and maybe one or two bits of sustained winds are possible, and they'll be felt a lot more later on when this storm progresses northwards. So that's pretty much our summary on Hinnamnor right now. We'll have more live coverage on Force 13 later on in the morning Japanese time as we enter September 1st.